Gina, over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Ashley. Well, it is summertime, and that means that many families will head to amusement parks. However, not all of the screams on the rides are from enjoyment. They could be because of injuries. Most recently, a 5-year-old boy remains in critical condition after nearly drowning at a Connecticut water park on Saturday. Witnesses are saying Devon Alexander slipped off his inner tube at the bottom of a 375-foot water slide at the Lake Compounce amusement park. He spent 25 minutes gasping for air above and below water before rescuers finally found him. The park officials are saying that boy met the ride's height requirement, but apparently did not know how to swim, and that was another requirement. In this case, officials say it does not appear the ride malfunctioned, but there are still dangers at many theme park attractions. In fact, the federal government is now considering stepping in to monitor the safety of amusement park rides. Greg Fox from NBC's Orlando affiliate, WESH, has that part of the story.
SeaWorld has raised the bar on local scream machines. Its new Kraken roller coaster rockets you to 65 miles an hour. Disney's new Rock and Roller Coaster is close behind, joining Universal in its lineup of rides that thrill and chill. The park maintains the rides look dangerous, but are safe. Watching their son and daughter on the bumper cars, Jeffrey and Ann Brown are like most people. They trust parks to have safe rides.
They seem pretty safe so far.
From what you can see, anyway. Do you really know?
No.
But from broken bungee rides at a Kissimmee theme park to coasters in other parts of the country that have stranded dozens and killed others, the number of serious accidents at theme parks nationally is on the rise. Right now, Congress is considering a bill that would empower the Consumer Product Safety Commission to regulate ride safety at permanent theme parks. Not just the big ones like Disney, Universal, and SeaWorld, but also small ones like this one on iDrive. John Airy owns Fun Spot Action Park. He inspects his rides every day, and because his is considered a small park, it undergoes twice yearly state inspections. He says there's no need for the federal government to step in.
I think it's a bureaucracy that probably will have very marginal effects in the safety of a park.
Oh, man.
Major parks in Florida employ their own inspectors and are exempt from outside inspection. They argue there's no need for state or federal regulation.
We do heavy nightly maintenance, and then every day we test that ride before any guest rides it.
For now, absent of government oversight, you place your trust and your safety in the hands of major theme parks. In Orlando, Greg Fox, News Channel 2.
However, besides just placing your safety at the hands of theme parks, there are things that you, the parent, can do to help make your family's next trip a bit safer. Joining us is a mother whose son was injured on a ride at Disneyland. Kathy Fackler is now an advocate for improving safety at theme parks, and she has some tips for all of you parents out there. Joining us now from San Diego. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kathy.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, what's the biggest mistake that most parents make when they go to these theme parks?
I think one of the biggest mistakes that parents make is thinking that the rides have been judged as child safe in the same way that car restraints are judged as child safe and any other product that young children come into contact with. There are no federal safety guidelines for amusement rides, so it's up to whatever the manufacturers feel is safe. And oftentimes the height requirements are set for a 50th percentile height and weight. So you can have a very large child who's maybe 3 years old but is the size of an average 5-year-old, and they don't have the same kind of impulse control or life experience to make them safe on those rides. If you look at the statistics that come from the Consumer Product Safety Commission, 2/3 of all injuries involve children, and preschoolers are at higher risk than any other age group.
Wow. I know your son David was 7 when he nearly lost his foot at Disneyland.
No, he was 5.
5. Oh, I apologize. He was 5 years old. And you said that what happened to him, I guess, was something you think could happen to most any child.
Well, you know, children are quite impulsive and they don't understand the intricacies of the rules in the same way that adults do. Adults could see a sign that says keep hands and arms inside, and they understand that that also means feet and head and other things. When a sign says stay in your seat until the ride comes to a full and complete stop, well, if it comes to a temporary stop, or even slows down at the end, oftentimes kids will try to jump off the ride in a hurry to get off to another ride.
Right.
Children have been known to jump off because they're afraid and they want to get back to their parents and they don't understand what can happen on a moving amusement ride.
We want to take advantage of some of the advice that you have researched and gotten together for us, what parents can do to try and make their next trip a little bit safer for their family. First, you suggest that we read posted rules carefully.
Absolutely, absolutely. The parks do put a lot of effort into posting signage, and a lot of times that signage is ignored, again, in the rush to get on the ride or in your excitement. But it's very important that you follow the height and weight restrictions that are recommended by the manufacturers.
The keeping all body parts inside, as you recommend, that's something a lot of particularly preteens don't do because they like having their arms dangle up above their heads to increase the speed and the sensation of the ride.
Well, you know, and that's one of the problems is the #1 rule that's posted out there is keep hands and arms inside the ride. Well, if you look at the park advertisements, you know, they're full of riders waving their arms in the air. So it kind of gives the general impression that the rules aren't that important, and they absolutely are.
What about safety equipment? What kind of safety equipment should we be using?
I'm sorry, as far as on the rides themselves?
Yes,
Well, part of the problem with the safety equipment on the rides is a lot of the older rides and the kiddie rides in particular, the safety equipment was designed, you know, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Ferris wheels are using the same kind of metal lap bars as they used 100 years ago. So there's been a lot of increase in what's known about child safety, and there's also been a huge increase in the number of young children that use amusement rides. Many amusement rides were intended for adults, and the safety equipment hasn't changed at all. So parents need to be aware. They shouldn't look at the ride and assume that everything's being taken care of for them as it is on many other products. They need to use very careful judgment and understand that they're putting their children on heavy machinery and make decisions accordingly.
And you also say if we spot problems with it, if we think it doesn't look safe, don't try it.
Absolutely. Most parks pay enormous attention to safety, and they inspect their rides daily. You know, there are any business has some small percentage of people who are a little bit less careful. So if there are many cars that are blocked off because they're broken, or if it obviously looks like the attendant isn't paying attention, don't get on the ride.
Kathy, I'm going to read through some of the tips you have for children and let you comment at the end because we're running out of time. You say don't put kids on rides they're afraid of. Read warning signs aloud to your children. Talk to a child if he or she gets frightened during a ride. Never sneak too small or too young kids onto rides, and don't put your child on a ride he's outgrown. That one kind of surprised me. Usually we think it's maybe important if your kid is too short, but not if they're too big.
Well, you know, oddly enough, that tip came from someone who's in the industry who went through my website and said, don't forget that it's equally dangerous to put big kids on a ride that's intended for smaller kids.
I want you to point out again your website for parents who might be watching this and want a chance to log on to get more information.
It's www.saferparks.org.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kathy, for joining us today on HomePage. Some very helpful advice. A lot of kids nagging their parents to take them to amusement parks this summer. Appreciate it. Now over to you, ladies.
Gina,